Thanks for listening to the Thyroid Fixxr podcast with your host, me, Dr. Amie Hornaman, aka the Thyroid Fixxr, functional medicine practitioner, hormone and weight loss expert. We're talking all things thyroid, hormone, and health related in order to empower, educate, and transform you. So if you're ready to get your life back, let's get started. So today we are doing Hashimoto's 411. I wanted to go over 100 if we can get to them. Tiny tips and topics and things you might know and things you might not know, and going over them one by one, because you never know. If you were just diagnosed, these are things that you need to know right now. And maybe you've had a diagnosis for a while, but you still are searching for some answers. So let's talk about it one by one. So this is going to be a game changer for you, and you can probably hear the excitement in my voice. The latest introduction, the latest member of the family to the Fixxr line is Metabolism Fixxr. And this, oh my God, I formulated this just for all my people out there that need to lose weight, that need help in the weight loss department, that can't lose weight no matter what they do, that feel like they have a slow metabolism, and that might be thinking of trying all those peptides out there, you know, the Beverly Hills soccer mom drug of choice for weight loss peptides. Or even if you're on them already and you're like, man, these are really expensive and I'm still not losing weight, add in Metabolism Fixxr. Here's what I did. I took the power of T2, which increases your basal metabolic rate while you are sitting there watching Netflix. You're burning fat while you're watching Netflix. I combined it with a very unique patented ingredient called Suppressa. Suppressa has multiple clinical trials backing its efficacy in reducing your appetite, decreasing snacking, and providing way more control over your food intake. It is amazing. We also see improved emotional well-being, just decreased food cravings all around, reduced hunger, and weight management. Add on top of that, we have green tea extract, we have purple forest purple tea extract, both of which affect the metabolism in a very positive way without the jitters of normal fat burning supplements out there from the 1980s and 90s, right? The ones that made you feel like you're having a heart attack. You will not have that in any of my supplements, Thyroid Fixxr or Metabolism Fixxr. But Metabolism Fixxr, ooh, yeah, we kicked it up a notch. It is in powder form, so you can drink it through your day. It's going to flavor your water. We got orange crush and refreshing citrus. I love them both. It is going to keep you under control all day long. So you throw a couple scoops in your water bottle in the morning, throw a scoop or two in your water bottle throughout the day. You will have fat burning and appetite control the entire day for what? An eighth of a price of the peptides? Oh my God, you can't go wrong. So grab some Metabolism Fixxr today. Please let me know how you do on it. I am super excited for you. Super excited. Let's start. Big question of Hashimoto's. Why did I get this? And is it something that I did? No, it's not something that you did, and it's not your fault. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition. So it's where I always use the analogy of soldiers. You have these little soldiers and they go out. When you have an autoimmune condition, they attack the part of they're just confused. They just don't know. They're confused. And so they go out and they attack a part of your body that you really don't want them to attack. So in Hashimoto's, those little soldiers are going out and they are beating up your thyroid left and right. They're just attacking the heck out of it and eventually destroying it. And that's the big thing with Hashimoto's. We want to treat properly so that you don't eventually have a completely missing, destroyed, non-working thyroid. That's not good for you or for anyone. It is not your fault. It's not something that you did. So I always tell my story about how I was misdiagnosed 6 times and going back 20 some odd years when I was competing in fitness and figure and I put on 20 pounds. So here's me doing a very strict diet, going to the gym twice a day, and the weight's going up in the scale. Doesn't really make sense biologically, right? So it's not necessarily something that I did. Okay, can over dieting drop your T3 and drop your thyroid function? Yes, we talk about that often. And can, I don't know, let's say being exposed to a ton of stress or chemicals or that extreme dieting trigger an autoimmune condition to come on? Yes, but you already had that. It was dormant. So we always say the 3 big P's. So puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause are the times that women will often see Hashimoto's rear its ugly head. And in addition to that, extreme dieting and stress can bring it on as well. So if you've been through a really traumatic, stressful event, that can actually trigger those soldiers to go out and start attacking your thyroid. So no, it's nothing that you did. It's called life. You have an autoimmune condition, and that is what is going on. If you just have hypothyroidism, no, it's not something that you did. It's not your fault. It is just a down regulation for whatever reason. So if it's not Hashimoto's, but it is, you should note that 90% of all hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's. So chances are, and remember too, that thyroid antibodies often come back as a false negative. So you might have it and not know it. But it's important to know that even with regular old run-of-the-mill hypothyroidism, you didn't cause it. Okay, moving on, because we have a lot to get through. The thyroid, it's really important, and a lot of this is repetition. Maybe you've heard me say this before, but the thyroid controls nearly every body system. So your heart, your weight, of course, right? Your energy, your brain. A lot of us have brain fog. Your bowel movements, so bowel motility. A lot of you struggle with constipation. Your kidneys, your hair growth, your skin. It controls everything. It is the master gland. Something to keep in mind. So testing and diagnoses, this goes way beyond blood work. So we have to take, and this is what functional medicine does. It takes into account you as a whole person. So we're looking at you as a whole person in addition to your labs. Now, when we're talking about the labs, they have to be full and complete. You cannot say, I want a full thyroid panel and have them test TSH and free T4. That just doesn't work. TSH is the most common. Doctors will test the TSH. But TSH, I always give the analogy of a plumber, but I'm gonna give you another one. It's like the reading of your electric meter. So it tells you the big picture for a month of kind of what's going on, but it's not giving you that daily. It's not fluid. It changes by the hour. So the other analogy I give is if you have a flood in your basement and you call a plumber and the plumber comes in, looks in your kitchen sink, and you don't have water spewing out of the kitchen sink, and he walks away and says, I don't see a problem here. And you're saying you have to look deeper. You have to go in my basement. I have 2 feet of water down there. That is the TSH. It does not give the full picture of how your thyroid is functioning. You have to do all the tests. So we like to do TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and the thyroid antibodies to start. And then we can add on from there. But if you are being diagnosed by your TSH alone, if you're being dosed, so if you are diagnosed already and you are on thyroid medication and you're being dosed by your TSH number, that is also incredibly wrong and will do you nothing but a disservice because you most likely are under medicated and not optimized, not functionally optimized. So we said that we need a full thyroid panel. One thing to keep in mind when you're getting these thyroid panels done, and we will go over medication when to take it a little bit more, but it's really important. Actually, I just had a patient come in with a very high free T3 number, and she's only on a very low dose of T3 medication, but the fact that she took it the morning of her labs, it's now showing a falsely elevated free T3. So it's very important that you do not take your medication the morning of your labs. I don't care if your doctor tells you to. Do not do it because you will be, now this patient is at risk for having her doctor decrease her T3 amount, decrease her T3 dose when she actually doesn't need it to be decreased. It's giving us a false elevated. So she needs to have that retaken on a day where she skips her T3 medication. Now, the way I like to do it is if I'm getting my labs done tomorrow, I will skip my afternoon dose of T3 today. I will skip my morning dose tomorrow, and then I will take the morning dose of T3 right after my lab. So that way I am giving myself a full, I like 24, a full 24, if not a little bit more, 24 plus hours of cleaning out my system of T3 because it's very fast acting and getting an accurate reading on those labs. Now it's important to also know that free T3 is the highest in the morning and it's the lowest around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So if you can actually wait a little bit and not do it first thing in the morning, because first thing in the morning can actually also give us an elevated free T3 number. So if you take your medication, if you take your T3 medication or your NDT in the morning and you go in the morning to get your labs drawn, you could have an elevated free T3, to which you will be told that you're fine, you're normal, everything's fine, or they'll reduce your meds. So you don't want to do that. Just a little tidbit of info to keep in mind. So I like to go, I don't like to push it till 2 or 3 in the afternoon, but I do like to go a little bit later in the morning to just allow things to balance out and to level out. TSH is also, now we're not going to be diagnosing or dosing based on TSH, but TSH is also lowest in the morning and highest in the evening, closer to bedtime. So that's why sometimes we dose T4 only right before bed, because it has better absorbability and it actually acts on the TSH circadian rhythm. Just a little fun fact. Okay. So as you all know, there is no one size fits all with Hashimoto's. There are different levels of Hashi. So if you want to learn about the 5 stages of Hashimoto's, you can watch that video by going to my YouTube channel. I have it on there, 5 stages of Hashimoto's. So we go through those 5 stages, and the end stage is destruction, total destruction of the thyroid, as well as other autoimmune conditions coming on. So it's important to note with autoimmunity that where we see 1, we normally see 3. And that's why we like to keep those soldiers at bay. Going back to the soldier analogy, keep them in their barracks, keep them contained, don't let them out, because then they're going to go beat up another body part. So with Hashimoto's, those soldiers are beating up your thyroid. Then if it goes on to Crohn's, they're beating up your gut. If it goes on to celiac, they're destroying the small intestinal villi. So on and on we go, and normally where we see 1, we see more than 1. In addition, we went over normal TSH, but a patient does not feel normal. What does that mean? So you can have a completely normal TSH, and by normal, I mean in the standard lab value range of up to 4.5. Now that has been debated throughout the years, and functional medicine really likes that TSH to be below a 2. But even if you have a TSH below a 2, but your free T is in the tank, your thyroid hormones are in the tank, T4 and T3, but specifically T3, since that is the active thyroid hormone, then we are going to take a look at that. And we're definitely going to want to look at your antibodies to see if those are present and available for us to view, if we're not getting a false negative, and paint that whole picture. That's why you can't go by the TSH alone, because your TSH could be normal, but you still could be subclinical hypothyroid with a low free T3. This TSH range is very, very controversial. So if you are on actually thyroid hormone replacement, I like to see it below a 1, below a 1.5. If you are a thyroid cancer survivor, we like to see that suppressed. So we like to see your TSH suppressed. I do not want you to be scared of suppressed TSH. So you may be told by your doctor, whether you are, especially if you are on thyroid medication, but whether you are a thyroid cancer survivor or not, if you have a suppressed TSH, oh my goodness, you're going to get osteoporosis and you're going to have a heart attack. That is not true. It has been proven false in the medical literature. It does not cause osteoporosis and bone loss, and it does not cause heart attacks or arrhythmias unless you have a previous existing condition. So if you have had a heart attack, if you have AFib, if you have tachycardia, you may be watched a little bit more carefully, and your T3 dose might be lower, and your TSH might be a little bit more into the 1 to 2 range and not suppressed entirely. Those are the caveats to that. But I do not want you to be pulled in to the false assumption that a suppressed TSH is going to cause heart failure and osteoporosis. That simply is not the case. And you also might hear the false advice or facts or whatever you want to call it, that T3 symptoms can occur when TSH is kept too low for too long. So what do I mean by that? So TSH being kept too low for too long, some docs will say, okay, this can bring on T3 symptoms, meaning that's what they call it, T3 symptoms. So meaning you are going to feel, it should be low T3 symptoms. You're going to feel hypo again. You may go from hyper to hypo state. You may have heart palpitations and arrhythmias and feel very anxious and jittery, and then still swing into the hypo where you have the brain fog and the low energy and the weight gain. I have been suppressed with my TSH for I don't know, 15 plus years. It's probably more than that. I've been on T3 only therapy for about that long. So my TSH has definitely been suppressed. One thing to note, if you are on T3 therapy, now this can happen with T4. I've seen this happen with just Thyroid, definitely with NDT, anything with T3 in it, and then my T3 only people, your TSH is just going to be suppressed. If you send your doctor back to the medical books and open up the basics, right? The pituitary secretes TSH. So this is not a function of your thyroid hormone production. Thyroid stimulating hormone. So it stimulates the thyroid. It's not released by the thyroid. Released by the pituitary stimulates the thyroid to produce hormones. If you are taking an adequate amount of thyroid hormone replacement therapy, because you have to, and we do call it thyroid hormone replacement therapy and not thyroid medication for my people that don't want to take medication. You are replacing a hormone that is no longer working properly in your body and that might not be there at all. If you've had a total thyroidectomy, partial thyroidectomy, or if you are in the later stages of Hashimoto's where your thyroid's being destroyed, listen, you're just not producing the hormones. You got to take it. But in taking it and you get to that optimal level, right, your pituitary is like, hey, is there enough thyroid hormone here to do the job? Yeah, all right, we'll quiet down and shut up. So the TSH becomes suppressed. It goes lower and lower and lower as the pituitary senses that there's enough thyroid hormone. It's a feedback loop, so to speak. So, well, it is a feedback loop. So do not be scared when you see your TSH suppressed. I do not have hypo symptoms whatsoever. I feel rather optimized, actually. I have the cognition and awareness and concentration to get through the whole day. So no brain fog here. I'm optimized. My TSH is suppressed. Many of my patients are suppressed. Not to worry. Okay, moving on. Remember that T4 has to convert to T3. I know this is 101 for a lot of you and it's a lot of repetition, but bear with me because we're going to get to some points that you don't know yet. So T4 to T3. T4 must convert to T3, and many, many, many things can get in that way. I like to refer to it as running a marathon with hurdles. All those hurdles are your iron status and insulin. Do you have insulin resistance? Do you have estrogen dominance? Are you anemic? Is your ferritin low? What about too much selenium? What about not enough selenium? What about too much iodine? What about not enough iodine? All these factors just get in the way of T4 to T3 conversion. And oh, by the way, do you have a genetic mutation that can also prevent conversion? Just talked to somebody yesterday in the UK, going to be my patient. She has that test. I love it. And guess what? She's positive. So that gives us a lot of information that she is a non-converter or really, really bad at converting and might be a T3 only candidate. T4, I want you to think of T4 is money in the savings account, but you can't use it right now. T3 is money in your pocket and is available right now. So if you think of T4 being the storage, T3 being active and available for your cells to pick up, T3 is what your cells want anyways. It's what they want anyways. Moving on. Preferred thyroid replacement. Okay, people ask me, what is your favorite thyroid medication? I say the one that works best for you. So there's no one size fits all with this. Sometimes we have to play around. So there are your natural desiccated thyroids. So your NDTs, your Armour, NP, Thyroid, so on and so on. There are your synthetics. That's your Synthroid, your Levo, your Levoxyl, your Tirosint. On the T3 side, it's liothyronine and Cytomel. I want the one that's going to work for you. Sometimes we use a combination. So sometimes we will use NDT and T3 combined. Sometimes, and a lot of you on here right now can speak to this, NP thyroid just doesn't work so well lately. It's been really kind of in the crapper. So we might have to switch. And I've had patients that do really well on Armour, don't do well on NP, do well on Thyroid, and do well on the synthetics. So oftentimes it's very personalized, it's very individualized. We have to move you around until we find that sweet spot, that perfect combination of medication or the medication and the dose that is going to work for you. The only thing I am not a fan of is T4 only. Many of you have heard me say that. I am not a fan of T4 only. But really it comes down to the medication that's right for you is the one that's going to work for you. So maybe you are a T3 only candidate. Well, that means that if we add in T4, you're going to get worse and you're going to feel more hypo, even though that medication dose is going up. So you think, oh, more thyroid hormone replacement, better, better metabolism, better feeling, more energy. But that's not the case if you do not convert. So if you're not a good converter, then you want to go on T3 only. But it's all about finding that happy place, finding your optimal. So this is where we pair your labs up with your symptoms. We cannot dose you based on labs. We cannot dose you just based on your symptoms, but your symptoms play a big role because you know your body more than anyone. So there's no real answer about what is best, but I will say just this. I have noticed in general that the synthetics are easier for doctors to dose. So if we're working with your doctor and you're starting new from scratch, right? You are a newly diagnosed thyroid patient. It's not like you've been on Synthroid and the generic and a whole bunch of other things, and we're just trying to figure out, okay, what medication worked for you, what didn't, what were your numbers, what was involved, what was contributing, all that good stuff. If you're brand new, I would recommend starting on the synthetics because they're a little bit more steady, I guess would be the word. You can kind of count on the dose. And here's the other thing. We can change the ratio with the synthetics. Now, with NDT, we can always add in T3 to change the ratio. I get that. So you might be on natural desiccated thyroid. We add in a little bit of T3, cytomel-leothyronine, and then that changes the ratio because NDTs are in general an 80-20 split, T4, T3. And when we add in T3, we're changing that ratio. We can do that with the synthetics as well. So if you're on Synthroid or Levoxyl or Tirosint and we add in the leothyronine, then we are changing that ratio anyways. Okay. Let's talk about your gut. Right, so when we're talking about Hashimoto's, the gut microbiome, the gut biome, immunity starts in the gut. So 80% of your immunity is in your gut. If your gut is dysregulated, chances are that alone can trigger Hashimoto's to express itself amongst many, many other things. But just something to keep in mind that your gut health, your gut status is very much tied to your immune system. So whether you are Hashimoto's or not, it is important to know that 80% of your immunity starts in the gut. So what's this thing called leaky gut? Everybody talks about leaky gut. So you say leaky gut and you think you're having the runs. That's not the case. And if you're hypothyroid, you're like, yay, please give me more gut motility, right? No, that's not the case. Leaky gut is when there is a breakdown in the whole GI tract. So I used to say this to my patients. I haven't said this in a while, so this will be fun. Think about your GI system as being the size of a tennis court, because it is. Mouth to bum, laid out, size of a tennis court. Think of how many things can go wrong. Think of the size of a tennis court. What if you have a hole in it? What if there's a chip or a crack, right? Things are going to get through. That's a lot of space for something to go epically wrong. So gut is the size of a tennis court. Think of all the different things that you are exposed to on a daily basis, from toxins to medications to beauty products to the air you breathe, BPAs, things that you drink, all the different endocrine disruptors, what you brush your teeth with, what you put on your body, all the makeup. A woman, I want to say, is exposed to something like 200 to 600 chemicals before she leaves the house. It's something crazy. So all of that is going to disrupt your gut microbiome. So very important to treat your gut, discover leaky gut, avoid foods that cause gut inflammation, thereby worsening autoimmune disease, and we're going to go over those. So just something to keep in mind, and then cut down on your environmental toxins and exposure. Like I said, we will go more into this in our detox episode, but just something to go over. Endocrine disruptors, cigarette smoke, flame retardants, the carpeting that you're exposed to. You got a new couch, yeah, that has flame retardants on it. BPA, so bisphenol A, plastic water bottles, your Tupperware. I mean, everything that you come in contact with usually has an endocrine disruptor. If you can reduce that by 80% you can control, 20% you can't, and then there's going to be things that you choose not to, like hair color. So 20% that you can't control, 80% you can control. In that 80%, do your best. and look at the labels and use something like EWG or Healthy Living app to check your products with what you're using to see what kind of chemicals you are exposing yourself to. If you can reduce that by just a little bit. So grab, one of these stainless steel water bottles instead of plastic. Get the glass containers instead of plastic containers for your food. Any little thing that you can do. Stop smoking. Get hardwood floors instead of carpeting if you can. Any of those little things that you can do is going to make a huge, huge difference. Then, the big foods to avoid. You've heard me say this before, right? Processed foods, sugars, and halogens. You're like, what is halogen? So it's things with bromine, bromine, bromide, brominated vegetable oil. Mountain Dew has brominated vegetable oil in it. Chlorine and fluoride. So you're brushing, I know this isn't a food, but you're brushing your teeth with that fluoride toothpaste, right? Mouth is here, thyroid's here, it's going to affect it. These are endocrine disruptors, and the thyroid is part of the endocrine system. So you don't want to disrupt it, especially when you're trying to optimize it. You need to stay away. So in addition to doing whatever you can, that 80% with your environment, I want you to think about food. So processed foods contain a lot of chemicals. Bottom line, you eat processed foods, you're causing gut inflammation, and you are basically sending those soldiers out to attack your thyroid, thus decreasing your thyroid function and or causing your medication to not work so well. And you don't want that to happen either. Sugar is highly inflammatory to the gut, to the brain, to your body. You already have those muscle pains and that brain fog. That's going to increase it. You start eating a lot of sugar, your weight's going to go up even more than it is right now. So you want to avoid sugar, avoid processed foods, and then we get into the halogens. If you look at iodine, iodine is needed by the thyroid, right? It's needed by the thyroid in the proper amount. I always call it the Goldilocks mineral because you want to just get in that real nice middle happy zone with iodine. But iodine is a halogen. So if you look at the periodic table, you'll see that bromine, chlorine, and fluoride, or I think it's fluorine on the periodic table, are all halogens, are all very close to iodine. So they will interfere with iodine uptake of the thyroid. They will interfere with how your thyroid functions. So looking at your labels, look for that brominated vegetable oil. You got a bottle of Mountain Dew sitting around, grab that. I noticed that years ago, even before I really started getting into the nitty gritty of the thyroid and the different things, the endocrine disruptors. I remember being in my 20s and turning over a bottle of Diet Mountain Dew because, back in my 20s, we didn't even know to avoid artificial sweeteners, and that's something else you have to avoid too. We'll get into that in a second. I picked it up and I was like, I don't know about like this. It was like wood rosin brominated vegetable oil or brominated wood rosin. I'm like, that just doesn't sound like an ingredient that I want to have. I don't know. It just sounds wrong to me. All across the board. So artificial sweeteners are endocrine disruptors as well. They will cause your thyroid to not function properly. They will also cause weight gain. So they will cause insulin resistance. Your body sees artificial sweeteners, so that's your aspartame, your sucralose, your asulfame, potassium, the pink, the blue, the yellow, sees it as sugar. So there's a study. I always like to talk about studies. They did a study. They took two groups of people. One group got diet pop. The other group got regular pop. Both groups gained weight. The diet pop group gained more weight because of the endocrine disruption that occurred from the artificial sweeteners. So it down-regulated their thyroid function. It also caused insulin resistance because the body responds to these artificial sweeteners just like you're eating sugar. So it's going to super secrete insulin out and you're going to be in a fat storage mode. Not what you want. Supplements. So up in the description, I just did a new freebie for you. It's supplements it's a supplement cheat sheet, supplements that we use with Hashimoto's. You don't need a ton. You do not need a ton. So last week I did a video of why I don't like functional medicine. And in it, I talked about these functional medicine practitioners loading down their patients with laundry lists of supplements. Patients come to see me with bags of supplements. You don't need that many. I went through the ones that I take, and in that supplement cheat sheet, there's very good descriptions as to why you need to take these, but you can still pick and choose. You don't have to get every single one. Pick one that works for you. My digestion is fine. I don't need betaine HCl. But for Hashimoto's patients who have poor digestion still, that's a great one. If you're struggling with weight, then maybe you want to add in the berberine synergy, because we've talked about that ad nauseum of how it helps with insulin resistance and it helps calm down those carb and sugar cravings. And then the keto nootropic drink, which I think is nothing short of a miracle, that has all the electrolytes. It's got the magnesium in it that we need anyways for our thyroid function. And then it has the beta hydroxybutyrate, which brings you into a state of ketosis, which makes you burn fat better. And I always tell my story about how I started about a year ago, and then my clothes started fitting better, and then my jeans went all baggy, and I fit into jeans that I hadn't fit into since 2010. Yeah, I still kept them. They were from Buckle. I wasn't going to throw them out. So keto nootropic drink is great, but customize it. Pick and choose. Disclaimer, always disclaimer, talk with your doctor about any supplements that you're taking to make sure that they approve. Look at the cheat sheet and build it out. Ask me questions, build it out. But you don't need a laundry list of supplements. You don't need that many. You need targeted. So when I work with patients one-on-one, I give you a targeted list of supplements to use. I tell you why we're using them and what to expect to see, because you don't want to just take supplements willy-nilly and then not get any bang for your buck and not get any changes or results or numbers move or anything like that. So you need to know what to look for, what the supplement's going to do, and why we're using it. Don't just do it. Don't just get it because you saw it on Dr. Oz. And do not get your supplements from Amazon. That's worth repeating because people are still doing it. Do not get your supplements from Amazon. Most of the time, they're counterfeit. I don't care how much research you do. If it's $20 cheaper, that might be a red flag that it's not real. Do not get your supplements from Amazon. It's not worth it. Not worth it. I like Designs for Health. I go into a litany of why. They are family owned. Everything's made in the USA. Their philosophy is science first. And everything that they make works. So if you're buying something to actually move your numbers, guess what? Your numbers are going to move. And you're going to feel different. And it actually works. Side story with that. I had a family member, friend of the family, older gentleman that I was just helping on the side. And he had horrible cholesterol and pre-diabetes. And I said, you got to start on the berberine synergy by Designs for Health. It's going to reduce your A1C. It's going to reduce your glucose, your fasting glucose. You're going to lose some weight, and it has lipid protecting properties as well. So it's going to work on those lipids. And he wanted to save money, and he went through his daughter, who actually works for like a Vitamin World or something, and she got him a berberine supplement that made by a different company. 1 year later, he had his numbers done again, labs done again. Nothing changed. I mean, zero. Not even 1 point. Now, compare that to a patient that I always talk about, who I wrote a paper about, we reduced his hemoglobin A1C from 13.9 to 8.4 in 6 weeks, 13.9 to 5.4 in 6 months, basically reversing his diabetes. I think the berberine worked there, in addition to his hard work, but the berberine worked. So watch where you buy from. Brand snob, that's me. Company, you have to look out where you're buying your supplements. Don't buy them on Amazon. So we went over the supplements. Yes, you need anti-inflammatory vitamins, the best ones, vitamin D and vitamin A. But I don't recommend a lot of vitamin A unless somebody is in an autoimmune flare, because that can interfere with medication. So vitamin D, definitely. But it's worth mentioning glutathione. I had a patient question me about this today. I am taking liposomal glutathione. It has to be liposomal form in order for it to be absorbed. Yes, you can use NAC and acetylcysteine. That's the precursor to glutathione. Glutathione is the most potent antioxidant, detoxifying antioxidant ever. So if you feel like, we talked about this chemical exposure thing, right? So if you feel like you're really kind of weighed down by chemical exposure, if you're like me, who had to take a crap ton of Advil and Maxol about 2 weeks ago from a migraine that wouldn't let go, I felt rather toxic after that, but I had to. It was that bad. So now I'm taking a lot of glutathione to push that out, support my liver, support my detoxification processes. Can't hurt. Glutathione's pretty awesome. I'm all about anti-aging. You don't want to overdo the antioxidants, though, because that can actually backfire. So be careful with your antioxidants, but a good vitamin C And glutathione thrown in is A1, M1, and anti-inflammatory vitamins, vitamin D. Okay, when to take your thyroid replacement medication. You must wait 1 hour after eating. You must wait 1 hour, before eating. You must wait 1 hour after and before eating. So let's say you're taking it in the morning. You are on NDT, T3. You take it in the morning. Wait an hour, because waiting 40 minutes will cut your absorption down by 20 to 40%. You don't want that. You don't need that. So make sure that you are waiting that 1 full hour. And the other thing that you can do, also make sure it is 4 hours away from calcium, any PPIs that you may be taking. And they say dairy because of the calcium. So if you're doing a little splash of heavy whipping cream in your coffee that you waited 1 hour to drink after taking your thyroid medication, that's fine. But you don't want to feast on a whole bunch of cream cheese, and you're doing your keto bagel made with mozzarella cheese in the morning. So just try to 4 hours for that. Now, the one thing that we can do with T4 medication is dose it at night. Dosing it at night, T4 only. Now, some people, I don't know, it wouldn't work for me because my sleep's all messed up anyways. But you can try it. You can try your NDT or your T3 before bed. Just know that that might be a restless night. But T4 only, we can dose that right before bed. And it actually improves absorption rate, and it's a lot easier for you, isn't it? Because then you don't have to wait that full hour in the morning when you're jonesing for your coffee. So what you can do is just take it right before bed, set it on your nightstand, take it before you climb into bed, make sure you don't eat an hour before bed, and there you go. Easy breezy. Then if you are doing T3, which hopefully you are, then you can dose that throughout the next day. So you can still take it. You still take your T3 in the morning, take your T3 in the afternoon. T4 goes before bed, if you can. If you miss a day of thyroid replacement hormone, that's okay. Just don't miss multiple. So T4 has a very short slit. T4 is like the tortoise, right? It's very slow, long and slow acting. T3 is very fast acting. It peaks at 4 hours. So T3 is like the hare. If you miss your dose of T3, let's say today, you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot it. You can take it at night, or you can just go ahead, skip it. It's in and out of you're fine. Just take it the next morning. Take it the next morning. T4, same thing. If you skip your T4 dose, you skip your NDT, just take it the next morning. But if you're not consistent with your thyroid medication, you're missing 2-3 doses a week, that's a problem. That's a problem for your labs. That's a problem from us practitioners trying to help you. That's a problem for you because you're going to stay in a really hypo state and really not know what's working and what's not working. Okay. Oh my gosh, I think we got through everything.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, please share this episode and check out the entire Thyroid Fixxr podcast on all podcast platforms. If you're on iTunes, it would be awesome if you left me a review. And just a reminder, anything you hear on this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat, so you always want to check with your doctor about any advice given on this podcast. And if you'd like to schedule a discovery call, please refer to the show notes for all the links. Everything that we talked about in the podcast will be in there with a guide for you on how you can get your life back. Let's get you fixed.